Good morning, wonderful listeners. You've tuned into Post Session Podcast, a podcast filled with the stoke of a surf session and the wise guidance of an ocean voyager. Your water-loving hosts are ready to share this infectious state of mind while encouraging and inspiring you for your next adventure. Okay. Hey, Laurel.
Hey, Ash.
Hey, Mr. David.
Hi.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for carving time out for us this morning. So everybody who's listening, David has already come to us from another event. He's in high demand. Actually, 2 events we just learned, which hopefully you'll indulge us and let us know what last night's event was. But this morning, you were the keynote speaker for Smart Start of New Hanover County, right?
Yep.
Annual breakfast fundraiser.
You bet.
They had bacon.
They had bacon and quiche.
Bacon and quiche.
They balance each other.
Yeah, they do. You eat the bacon on top of the quiche.
Yeah, right.
We're in. Okay, so I want everybody to know a few things about David before you get going, Laurel.
Mm-hmm.
We are sitting here with a leviathan of underwater exploration.
Great word, leviathan.
Well, most of it is COVID weight. But
I mean, if you could see this guy. If walls could talk. This is from his TED Talk website, okay, because he's done many TED Talks and had the videos and the whole cool thing. But
one of the highest watched.
Yeah, now that I put it on loop for the last 2 weeks.
good for you.
You're welcome. But he's a pioneer in ocean exploration, an enthusiastic ambassador between the sea and those of us on dry land, which I think is a really awesome introduction, but it's also fairly modest, meaningful.
And I don't know if I'm an ambassador for people with the sea or my ambassador for the sea creatures, people.
I think the sea, my take.
Yeah.
Okay, you can speak to you better than I can, but it's ambassadors for the sea creatures to people.
Okay, but I work for them, in other words.
But I think you're a mediator
That's
of
different,
sorts.
though, kind of,
because,
right?
Yeah, where you're an ambassador, but also a mediator. You're always trying to relay what you're learning and what you're finding out to the people that you work for, but also the rest of the general public, so that we can be aware of this great thing called the ocean. Okay, so can we also just say another couple of things, just a couple more things?
Just 2.
That he was on the expedition to map out the Titanic.
Yep.
And that he was part of the expedition that helped found Air France.
Successfully.
Yeah,
they found that sucker.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while.
So he's passionate about the relationship between humanity and the sea and makes a call to each of us to recognize the ocean's critical role in providing the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat.
And I just wear the fish t-shirt. That's what I do.
That's important.
And you'd be surprised how many times I mix that up. The water we eat, the air we drink.
The catchphrase just gets jumbled.
Get it right.
Well, we're going to talk about all these things today with you, but first, let's get into our post-session notes.
And that's where we talk about what we've done in the water since the last time we talked.
Right, so typically Laurel will talk about surfing and her last surf. I'll talk about the next free dive I'm going to engage in, and you'll talk about something even cooler than both of those things put together.
No, I don't know about that. Cool is cool, but yeah, let's hear. Go ahead.
Well, he's our guest. Shouldn't he get? Well, you want to start and break the ice for us?
Okay, all right. Well, speaking of breaking the ice, so you might have heard I just got back from Puerto Rico, and so I went from 83 degree water to 53, 4 degree water. And that was just a little bit of a awakening. And it took a little bit of strength of character, thank you.
Which you have plenty.
Which I have plenty, to get back out there and suck it up.
You got a new wetsuit though.
Well, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to just plug Buell wetsuits, because when I pulled down the top of my wetsuit, so I'm coming out, I've already surfed, I bought this, well, it was a gift for Christmas, it has polka dots up top, but as I'm pulling it off, inside is pink, right when I pull it off my chest, on the chest, written so that I can see it when I look down, is a Joan of Arc quote that says, you don't need to, something about, don't be afraid, you were made for this. And then, so I'm like, heck yeah, I'm badass. And then I'm pulling it down, shimmy, 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 right at the hardest part. You're like, getting it over the hips, and you pull it past the knees, and on each knee, facing up to me, are smiley faces. On each knee patch.
It's the little things, right?
I was just like laughing when I was coming out of my wetsuit, which is probably the furthest of what you're usually doing when you're coming out of your wetsuit.
Yeah, it's the hardest part of my day. Is the wetsuit on and off is definitely the hardest part of my day.
Okay, so that's my post-session.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You want to do a David post-session note sandwich?
Yeah.
You on one side, me on the other.
That sounds good.
What have you
You're
done
the
in the
filling.
water? Yeah, you're the good stuff. We're just the bread.
All right. Oh, so I should just. But you said since the last time, but I don't know when since the last time was. But I can.
Well, what's coming up? You can do what's
Yeah,
coming
sure.
up next.
Yeah,
Well,
you could do that. Or...
the next big thing is back to Titanic to finish some of the things. That, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you're going back to Titanic? Why?" A lot of stories on Titanic, and everything kind of up to now has been touristy. So, and a tourist, if you're paying a lot of money to go to Titanic, you want to see the bow, you want to see the bridge, the grand staircase, the propellers, and that's what you see. And the next one does the same, next one does the same. But in between all that stuff, there's so much to be looked at. I mean, 2,000 some odd passengers, they've all got great stories to tell. And Titanic's like a time capsule.
Wow.
So we learned something historical from that. Also, something that interests me is Atlantis, not the city that lives under the water, but these people called the Minoans that lived on the island of Santorini. Back then it was called Thera. And and on Crete, but fascinating people. They had multi-story buildings, they had hot and cold running water, beautiful jewelry, beautiful murals on the walls, and the island blew up, Santorini, and they escaped. Most of them, we think, escaped to Crete, but we're just finding out who they were. And when I look at the murals, it's just so amazing. Like, as I said, they were fun-loving people. And so that's another thing that's got me interested. And then there's the other perennial things, like how do we better describe climate change and the role of oceans. But I'm trying right now to focus, the oceans, you can be excited because you're exploring and discovering new things, almost always. And that's great, very exciting. But then there's a flip side, which is the important side. Like, what is this ocean? What does it mean to us? And how do we get to know it better? So a little bit of both of those things. And in the meantime, spending time in my garden with my roses and dahlias. Although my dahlias made me mad last year, so I'm threatening them with
termination.
Yeah, out you go.
A nice stern threat goes a long way, especially if you have your scissors in your hand.
Yeah,
you better listen to me.
Yeah, or else, no, you got to pull them up by the roots.
Just get rid of them.
This world beneath this has nothing to do with the oceans directly, but the microbiome.
Yeah.
Oh man, that world is exploding with interest.
Right, and when I first became interested is listen, I'm going to say it, the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm not a listener because I saw his stand-up once and I thought, never mind. However, he has some really interesting guests.
Paul Stamets was one of those guests.
The mushroom guy.
Mushroom guy.
Yeah.
It was, I listened to all 2 hours, which is a big feat for me.
Yeah.
That's a lot of listening.
Yeah.
But,
Paul's amazing, and that world is, it's funny, the most conservative people I know, well into their 80s, are saying, you haven't tried mushrooms yet? Yeah. And microdosing. But beyond that, the fungus. So there's this whole world that we don't see, that lives in the roots of trees and plants, and that it communicates back and forth. Wow.
It made me think, well, maybe Avatar had it right to begin with.
That's right.
That is cool. And what's interesting about your post-session note, well, one of the things is that you were talking a lot about being interested in the history of the Titanic
Yeah.
and the people and all these things. But if you were to watch one of your TED Talks, it's all about the creatures.
You know,
You
my
love the-
first TED Talk, I've given actually, I think 8.
Mhm.
But TED was sold in the middle of, one of my mentors is the guy that started TED, Richard Werman. And with him, I think there were 6 TED Talks, and then he sold it to Chris Anderson. I had 2 others. But my first TED Talk, I walked out on stage and I said, we've got the best images of Titanic you could ever see, and I'm not going to show you any of them. And, you know, that kind of shocked the audience. And I like that, you know, shocked them. But I showed them for the first time on this giant screen these bizarre animals that looked like they came out of a dream. I mean, actually, you couldn't dream them up because we've never seen them before.
It's science fiction,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
animals you see.
And yeah, it seems that I could say nothing. You know, like the octopus, one of the talks, the 16 million talk people viewed as an octopus that camouflages itself. And I didn't have to say anything. I could just sit there and let the film run and, you know.
Well, in the films, you are narrating, but it's all about the imagery. You're
Yeah.
not having to describe a
No.
lot. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, I'm cheating, kind of, getting out the easy way.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Thanks a lot. You're
this
supposed to
guy-
argue with me, but your words,
He is a
your
hack.
words, great. Your words, you're supposed to say your words are magical. So, Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll link those.
Let's go to the injustice now.
What was your? Did you?
Oh, my possession note.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just go through it briefly. I'm going
Yeah.
to the Florida Springs this Friday. Again, I've been there many times. Have you explored the Florida Springs before? It's worth a go. But yeah, we've got a big full class, and we're going to go spend a couple of days on the back end diving with Bruce Mock,
Mhm.
because we were. I'm pointing at Jen right now because she lives right next to Logan Mock Bunting, his
Yeah.
brother. Yeah, so we're just gonna dive, look for manatees, let the kids go nuts, and then we're gonna see rocket launch on
Ooh.
Wednesday. Because
oh wow,
anytime we're in Florida, my husband and I normally sail with our family in the winter months
Mhm.
down in the Caribbean, and every time we're sailing through, we try to time it for a launch and just go as close as we can with the boat.
yeah. Nighttime, daytime, both times.
Both times, all the times. Yes. This time is going to be evening, and I think the significance of this launch is that it's the first one that is going to be taking passengers.
Yeah.
Like exclusively.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Just space tourism.
Mhm.
So we're going to go check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
way,
It's
you
big
know,
these days.
20
Space
years
tourism.
from now when I'm super rich, which I'm
Better
running
get on
out of
that.
time. I do recognize that.
Yeah.
But and I'm on there. I can say, "Oh, I saw the first one."
Do you ever think of calling NASA and say, or the space people and saying, you know, I've got a favorite ask. Could you
Could you do me a solid?
yeah, just have the launch on this date, and
Yeah.
we'll call ahead of time, let you know when we're passing by.
I think I shouldn't call NASA though. I gotta go
No.
straight to SpaceX these
Yeah,
days.
that's right.
Yeah. All right, that's my story. I'm gonna go look at some manatees.
Yeah.
So what about the injustice?
So what about the injustice? Because, you know, I think we didn't give David enough lead time, but I bet he could come up with one on the fly.
This is not the mafia thing, is it, that I got involved in, with olive oil and garlic?
I'm gonna let you lead this discussion,
Oh,
so we're
Oh.
not implicated.
yeah,
So every episode between the dive deeper and the post-session notes is something called the injustice of the week.
yeah.
And this can be funny. This can be whatever's got your panties in a wad.
It
Yeah.
could be Ukraine and Russia. It could be something really
Yeah.
significant. It could be
Related to the
something
ocean.
about the ocean. Yeah, and people.
Yeah, I can mix both. You know, I'm always interested in the state of the planet. Although, and I get in trouble for saying this all the time, I don't consider myself an environmentalist. I mean, if there's an oil spill on the beach, I'm not going to go down there with rags and clean oil off rocks. But I care. It's just not inside me, and it's not my passion to do that.
You love littering. You know what?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Far
At
be it
night.
from us to take that from you.
Mostly at night. And so we're trying to find a way to get through to people, stop polluting the oceans, and we have to fight. If you want to call it fight climate change, we have to reduce it somehow
Mm-hmm.
and adapt to it. But to me, as long as we're doing what we're doing in the Ukraine, what's the sense in all that stuff? If we're going to sit here and blow each other apart, all this other junk, what does it mean? You're going to go over there now and say, hey, you people in the Ukraine, I know you're on the way to Poland carrying everything you own, but if you're carrying plastic, yeah, right.
No
Yeah,
straws. Stop using
right.
the straw.
But here, buddy, you dropped this back here. Put it in your backpack. Be on your way. No, so that's what I consider to be, in a way, it's just ridiculous. I hate aggression. In fact, I want to stamp it out immediately. The one time I feel aggressive is when I see aggression. And it's a beautiful planet, and we have enough trouble. There's a couple billion people that are barely clinging to life. And because they're over there, as we say, even when they were over here, when New Orleans was pretty much wiped out, it was down there. We have this very strange way of thinking about life on the planet. And I think, every life is precious to me, until proved otherwise. So that to me would be the injustice of a week, of the week, maybe even the month.
Yes.
We'll see.
Maybe even
The year.
Beyond. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just plain ridiculous.
You brought up something important, though, that the environmental impacts pale in comparison to
Human
human
suffering.
atrocities, and they really do. But I'm also glad that we have such a variety of people, that you can have some that are so vehemently dedicated to the environment,
Yeah. Oh, sure.
so they can keep that ball rolling,
Yeah.
while others are over here working on this thing.
Yep.
Because we can't all spread ourselves so thin. We
Mhm.
have to, pick something. And for some people, the environment really resonates. It reminds me, I used to be an environmental consultant, which is like the dark side of environmentalism.
Right.
But anyway, one of my friends there, I would get so mad at people littering cigarette butts. Like, it just drove me crazy, and I couldn't manage.
Sometimes you're out the window of the car and lit rolling across.
Yeah.
You watch the sparks fly at night. Yeah.
But I, I'm freaking out and all this stuff. And I said, well, how do you feel about it, Brent? Because he's really into making an impact. And he said, I've got bigger fish to fry than a cigarette butt floating in a mud puddle. He's like, there are so many more significant issues out there. And I thought, well, yeah, sure. I guess I need to keep some perspective.
They should tell him not many big fish left. So the bigger fish he's frying, he's gonna are not so big anymore.
He needs to slot limit his.
Yeah, I am impressed with people that are that dedicated to the environment. Sylvia Earle in the oceans is one that's really been beating it into me that if we kill the oceans, we kill ourselves.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, I thought that was nonsense. It was just Sylvia doing her thing. But now, when we see fish in the middle of the ocean that have plastic bits in their stomach and pharmaceuticals in their flesh, flame retardants is a big one in their flesh. I start thinking, wow, it's hard to believe that we've managed to infect this, like bacteria on the planet.
Yes.
We've infected the whole place. So, so people like Sylvia that can make you react and to something like this, to take action, are invaluable as far as I'm concerned.
But I also agree with something you said. I think we can't think of it as going to war for our planet against these things. I think you just start mitigating their impacts until there's a solution that's...
Yeah, I caught myself because I don't want to get in trouble because, the planet's changing, dynamic planet. So the continents move. They do at the same rate your fingernails grow. And when they move apart, they make oceans between them. When they come together, they make mountains. But they've been doing that for 5 billion years. Crash, stretch, crash, all that junk. So the face of the Earth is always changing. And likewise, the climate has been changing for billions of years.
Right.
So when I see these things that say fight climate change, oh my God, why don't you start with day and night? Let's fight day and night, why don't we? And we kind of have with blighting that we have. But you can't stop climate change. You wouldn't want to stop climate change. What you want to do is to minimize our own impact.
Right.
And to me, it comes to pollution. Stop putting junk on the ground
Yeah.
which
It's
because
going to end up in the ocean.
it ends up in the ocean. Yeah, and the worst part is it comes in the form of clear water. You know, it comes
Yeah.
off farmlands, golf courses,
Yeah.
and it's carrying death to the sea. And it's tough too because it's incremental. It's not like an event like an oil spill. The media doesn't care that much. It's clear water. What am I going to show? So one of the most important things to us is pretty much, just doesn't get headlines. So do we need to fight climate change? Well, yeah, in certain ways, sure. We want to just, again, fight our urge to just pollute the atmosphere and the oceans. And then figure out, we're already in this mess with climate, and we can begin to figure out where the Earth is heading with climate. Changes all the time, and then go with the flow, try to adapt to what we see coming. So it's a bit different from just stop everything.
Yeah, well, and I think we use some of the technology that we're learning. Like, I'm sure when they came up with Roundup, they really didn't think about how long that was going to stay in the system. Or plastics.
Yeah.
That was the latest, greatest thing. So easy, this is a wonderful new tool that we're going to use. And now we're like, oh my God, there's plastic on the beach. Yeah. So.
Well, flame retardants, when we say we don't want our kids burning in their beds or in the car seats. So we put
Which we
flame
don't.
We don't want that, but somehow it breaks down to dust, and the dust gets blown out to sea, and then because of bioamplification, we get sea lions that can't be lit on fire. They're flame proof.
Oh my gosh.
But toxic levels in some of the marine mammals of flame retardants. So that's one of the things that we do. When I was growing up, it was DDT. I was talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
I used to, as a child, get soaked in DDT from head to toe. Eat apples and say, well, these apples make your mouth tingle.
I like it.
Yeah, so we.
Who needs mushrooms?
But also, yeah, right. But the other thing was that in the 60s and the 50s, maybe into the 70s, we used to explode nuclear bombs in the ocean to test them. Insane, And you could say, well, back then we didn't know, but not anymore. Those days are gone. Now we do know.
Right.
So we'll see what happens next.
Well, I think you just did a great lead-in to the dive deeper section of actually amplifying what we don't know.
It's not about that mafia thing again, is it? With the olive oil and the.
No, we're going to go even deeper. And everything in our podcast sounds like one big pun.
Yeah.
But when I say big pun, I have to say to those out there listening, I don't mean the rapper.
Is that a name? Big Pun?
Oh yeah, Big Pun. If
Oh,
my
okay.
brother's listening, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Probably involved in gang violence, that mafia stuff. Here we are, full circle.
Oh my gosh.
So, since we're diving deeper, I'm going to start it out with a quote that you mentioned being particularly meaningful to you by Marcel Proust that says, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. But I would contest that you're doing both. You're literally seeking new landscapes and
giving everyone
new eyes.
Yeah. Now that guy is I would say he's a French philosopher, but he's done a lot of work, and it's very complicated to translate and to understand. And so when I give that quote, people think but wow, this guy's into that stuff. I got it from a greeting card from Mary Engelbrecht.
You didn't have to disclose that, You could just tell everyone.
The truth is out now.
Yes, I read Proust.
Every day. No, that's where it came from. But the more you think about, and actually the quote translated is better than the greeting card. It's really a wonderful quote. I don't remember it now, sadly, but it's more elaborate. But the gist is the same. So it's not so much in finding those new landscapes as it is in how you think about it, how you think about the landscape. And technology. Well, think about it. With our technology, with telescopes, we can see the infinite, the edges of the universe. With our microscopes, you can see the other way down into the atomic nuclear level of material.
Infinite
Amazing.
in the other direction.
Yep. And then with our computers, we can stop a lightning bolt in its tracks and walk around it in 3D, or a raindrop, or you can watch glass flow because it's a liquid over time faster. And yet, so those are all things technology has brought us. Those are all the new new views that we have from technology, but hasn't made us think any differently about. You think that's an incredible opportunity that we have, and yet do we take advantage of it? No. So I think what Marcel had to say is that let's stop and think for a bit about what we're seeing here and what does it mean to us. Galapagos, I've been there many times, and when you go there, it's an amazing place. But they give people a checklist of birds and lizards and whatnot. And the minute they get off on that boat, boom, they're gone. Check, I got it
Yes.
all. I got the butterfly, I got the owl.
People love a checklist.
Just
Yeah.
sit your butt down here
Right.
and watch what happens around you. It's too bad. But I'm also one of the people that say put the camera down and be present, be at that spot for
Be
a
in
while.
the moment.
Be in the moment. Yeah, so important. It took me a long time to learn that, 30 years, maybe 40. But yeah, I understand the value of it now.
Yeah, and the way that our culture is organized these days, it's counterintuitive to put the camera down
Mm-hmm.
because your first impulse is capture it,
Yeah, I want to post it.
capture it,
Mhm.
post it.
Mm-hmm.
But I find a lot of times, we were just talking about this before David arrived, that social media, like Instagram, is just full of images and full of images. It's overwhelming. It becomes meaningless.
A TikTok, same kind of.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm.
So there's no depth. There's no.
Right, it's entertainment in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
It's
Well, it's an overload, I think, of information. Like when I think about kids, and this is kind of what I wanted to ask in my next question, is just what they're being exposed to so young, having this glut of information that's not meaningful in any way. So, what we see is with young kids that have a hard time focusing, a lot of times it's this chaos that's around them, and they don't have a hard time identifying what do I need to focus on, or
Sure.
where should I put my focus if there's constant chaos.
Mhm.
And I think with the cell phones and the technology today, that's like really having an impact. But what I wanted to ask you, which I thought it was really cool that you were talking and sharing at the Smart Start
New Hanover County.
for New Hanover County, and their mission is to help children be prepared by the time they get to school. And I was amazed that you were not. I would have expected David to have been this great student.
Mhm.
I don't know, Ashley, if you read that, but
Yeah, I did read about his beginnings as a student.
yeah. And so I thought, wow, so you didn't start off doing great in school.
Mhm.
And I was curious. I know you were reading the National Geographic magazine that re-sparked your
Yeah.
imagination or your passion.
Mhm.
But how did you, and then you said you were able to go back to school after being the manager of a shoe store, and you
Mhm.
had this like laser focus.
Yeah.
And how do you think that it went from not having focus and then being able to
Mhm.
manage your focus?
Well, as a child, I had that drive that I wanted to explore. Even
Yeah.
in my earliest that I can remember, I was crawling around in the dirt in the back of underneath our porch, looking at fossils.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in life, and all that time in elementary school, I was getting my grades were horrible.
Mm.
But what hurt more was these check marks that I spoke out of turn. I disturbed others.
Me
I didn't
too.
work to it, but yeah, I know I'm proud of that. It's great. But
Right
every,
now.
Now I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
Now that he's saying it.
every single year, every single semester, I would have to take that home to have my parents, and it was painful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be, I thought, a scientist because Galileo and Gallo were obviously related.
Yeah.
So I thought
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to be. So I would be outside with my telescope every night, and I'd be making model rockets and all sorts of stuff. I read Kon-Tiki when I was in elementary school about these guys that sailed across the Pacific to Easter Island.
That's why you hate sailing.
Yeah, the balsa raft that was falling apart. That's right. And so I was surprised when I got into high school. President of the Math and Science Club, president of the Rocketry Club. First talk I gave was Structure of the Universe. I still crack up at that. Structure of the universe. Might as well start big.
And
but-
what age was that? Just not to derail you, but
16, 15.
yeah, so you knew a thing or two about.
Yeah, it was evolved by, it was the 70s, so I don't remember much of it. Or actually late 60s. I was surprised when my guidance counselors and my teachers said, you don't have what it takes to go to college, let alone become a scientist. So you should do something else. And I sold shoes for 7 years. I loved it. Still love it. Maybe I'll do it again. I don't know. I'll sell Louboutin shoes. And it was painful, but one day I was looking in the shoe department. I was standing at the desk like most shoe department salesmen do, flipping through a National Geographic, and there was a picture, a magazine, with a picture of a submarine, an underwater mountain, and that picture about these 3 people in this little tiny speck on this giant mountain exploring the deep. I didn't get smarter, but it pushed some button that brought me right back to Thor Heyerdahl and Kon-Tiki, right back to those early days.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I said, that's what I want to do. It was one of those things that it just clicked, and I knew it was going to be tough. And it was, I right across the mall, the parking lot kind of, from where I sold shoes was the State University of New York at Albany. So I took that magazine over there. And I started asking some people about it. And instead, I was lucky, you had the right people there. In fact, one of the people that was involved in that article happened to be there. And
just happened to be.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it was a lucky thing because I was welcome. There were no stupid questions. And from that point, 2 years, had my bachelor's, made my first dive in the sub, and gave my first paper at an international meeting. None of it was easy. I watched the sun rise and set more than once from my office multiple days. Some days I was up 2 days in a row, 2 nights, some days 3.
Were you working at the store during the whole time?
Yeah, shortly. I did some
Okay.
part-time stuff.
Okay.
But
You were
I-
audacious. You had audacity.
I was also stupid. I was living. I remember times where I would have $2 in my pocket for 3 days. It was horrible.
But necessary, worth it.
Well, yeah, it was work. It was a lot of work, it's the thing I want people to understand is I didn't get smarter. I just got directed, and my passions came alive because of that one article.
And I would say even the right people being
Lucky.
in the right place
My
at the
entire
right
life.
time.
My entire life has been the right and making a decision to go left at the fork or right at the fork. Made a lot of mistakes, I think.
Sure.
I made mistakes. A lot of decisions I don't regret, but could have led into a more. For instance, I knew Jeff Bezos when he was just starting Amazon, and I knew Sergey Brin and Larry Page when they were starting Google.
And
were
they
out to
asked
see
you to
me.
go in, and you said,
No, they didn't. And I was at the same strategic planning meeting where they were asking people for money. And to Jeff, I'd say, well, everyone loves bookstores, and no one's going to put a credit card online. It's not going to happen, Jeff. And to the
Darn.
Google boys, I said, let's just Google. We have Netscape. We don't need any Google. And I would actually hide from them. I'd see them walking up the path, and I'd go, oh, God, here comes that guy
Yeah,
again.
you would. They were like the high school teachers to you. No,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah, right. You're too stupid to do this. Anyway, a lot of people I met by luck, the founder of TED and on. It's all about people. That's a very good point. That it really is not just my own passions, but meeting the right people at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a minimal part of your story, but I think that 7-year gap, those gap years, were probably pretty formative. Because the program that kids are pushed into now is you got to do this, you got to achieve that, you got to go to college, you got to do this, and some people aren't ready. Especially if they're a low performer in school, they're not ready for the college atmosphere. But it doesn't mean they're going to continue to be a low performer. They just haven't found how to navigate school or
learning how to win. I always called it learning how to win, and I never quite got it,
Or
but I coped.
even the bell system. Next class. Next
Oh
class.
God, I hate
You know,
you. You're
so
making
it's-
me cringe right now just
Right.
doing that.
So many of us were not I would say we're not necessarily designed to be in that atmosphere to learn.
I certainly wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and I learned a lot from the shoe department because I was having to deal with people.
Mm.
And I like to say being a salesman, what was more than that? I always had it like this person wants my help. They're looking for something, and I'm going to help them.
Awesome.
So in science, I found to be the same thing. It was always kind of selling an idea, selling a theory.
It's interesting you say that because I've done different jobs and this and that and been involved in different things. And I never, I always look back on just my years waitressing
Mm-hmm.
through college. And then even after college for a little bit, I look on those years fondly because I actually enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the
Serving.
response that I got from people. I
Yeah.
enjoyed serving, and I enjoyed also the challenge
Mhm.
of selling them a little bit,
Yeah.
telling them this is what you want. Trust me, it is delicious. You know why not?
Yeah, right.
And it was a game, and it was fun, and everyone left happy. And
You know, I'm
like
still that kid that had trouble focusing. Although you learn how to hyper focus with ADD, I learned how to hyper focus. But I'm still that person. You know, people still say, let's not invite Gallo to this meeting because we'll spend the entire time looking at his iPad. You know, he'll disturb us, talk, we won't get anything done. So in a way, my teachers were kind of right. And also a scientist has to focus on one thing pretty much their entire career. You focus on, that's what you do.
Wow.
I study zebrafish. If you move out of that little corridor, you're in big trouble in science. That's what you do. And I could never do that. Never.
You made
never.
a big corridor.
yeah,
Yeah.
You have a
corridor.
big corridor.
I did because I followed my own passions, you know, and I never knew. You know, the good part was that my ADD didn't let anyone influence me with rules and regulations. I was, it's just, they couldn't get through this thick skull. That, and I didn't know anything but, and move fast, go fast, follow your dreams. So they had to catch up with me, but it wasn't easy. It still wasn't easy. It was tough to do.
how rewarding. The submarine, I particularly, well, I want to talk about Shackelford ship too, but I wanted to ask about the submarine because
Yeah.
I went on a sub one time,
Mm-hmm.
but we only went 500 feet.
Atlantis, one of those subs.
No, it was a
multi-people.
home build.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I was in Honduras,
Mm.
and there's this crazy guy out there who had built this sub.
Mm-hmm.
And after one of the freediving competitions, we won a trip. My husband and I won a trip on the sub. And of course, we left our kids
Mm-hmm.
with my brother. And I thought at the time, we're not going to return. This is the last time we're going to see our daughter. This is
I'm
terrifying.
surprised you did, yeah.
But I went anyway because, again, I mean, like you, I have a thick skull.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we got in there and he cranked up the Pink Floyd, I thought, I don't know if this...
Dark Side of the Moon or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that.
exactly. I don't know if this is a positive way to start the experience, or if I should be really scared.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome, though.
Yeah.
It was super cool. I was
Course.
only disappointed we weren't deeper. I could still see light, and I thought, that sucks.
Yeah,
You know, I'm
yeah.
getting ripped off
It
right
does,
now.
yeah, when you go deeper and you know what's coming, you pass through that photic zone, we call it, where you have that light dentist office blue, and then you go
Mhm.
deeper and it gets slowly darker, and then all of a sudden, boom, black.
I wanted the black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
I never got the black.
Especially
though.
with Pink Floyd. I went Pink Floyd too. Now I graduated to Led Zeppelin. after
Nice.
Pink Floyd, but I think when I listen to Pink Floyd now, Dark Side of the Moon, that THC residual comes out of my bones.
Pores.
Well, that's what worried me about this experience. I thought, is this guy okay to drive? Because I'm really thinking at 500 feet, if something were to go wrong, could I ascend? I don't think I could ascend 500 feet.
Well, I'm just wondering why you and Ren didn't at least split the odds, like one of you go down at a time. So at least your kid wouldn't lose both parents.
Mhm.
Yeah, in retrospect, that probably would have been the best.
I was on a dive once. It was the last dive of a bunch of dives. And so the pilot sits in the middle, looks forward, and then you've got an observer on either side. I was on the right side. And again, it's 2.5 hours to the bottom. It's it's trippy to get, because you're looking out the window at all these incredible things, but sometimes you just want to lay back and relax. and I laid back and I was watching the pilot for some reason in the dim glow of a red light. And I said, he's talking to himself, looking out the window,
Yeah.
staring out and talking to himself. I thought, wow, that's really weird. And then the oxygen in the sub went way
Oh no.
low, yeah. And then he cranked it up, which was almost worse because
Oh,
then
shucks.
the oxygen. Oh my God, we're going to ignite and self-combust.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. And the best part was, so I kicked the guy next to me. I said, keep an eye on this guy. Talking. What was he talking to outside the window? Some creature that was out there.
No, that would scare me though.
Yeah. But the best part was when he took out some K-loom sticks and was smearing it on his body. So I thought maybe he's communicating with the bioluminescence with the jellyfish. Could be. I'm one of you.
Well,
We have to go out there. We have to go out there now. We have to get out of the sub and be with them.
We already talked
I don't
about
think
the
so.
mushroom connection.
Mhm.
He was making his rainbow connection.
Yeah, so bizarre. But yeah, it's that dark world is. But hey, you went places that you could normally not go. 500 feet.
I
Pretty
couldn't
deep.
go there on my own, nope. And I'm not going to do it on, on a scuba dive
Mhm.
of any kind.
No.
So that was pretty cool. I was surprised to see many of the same species that I see.
How
up there.
long did you stay under the sea?
I'm trying to think of how long. I can't remember the round trip,
Mm-hmm.
but we had to be at least 2 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
Well, that's
was a
that's
good-
quite a long time.
well. He makes money finding these rare shells,
Oh,
like fossils and shells, and he sells them on the market to collectors. So that's what he was doing. While
so
he was
there's a
taking this-
manipulator on the front,
There
a
is.
grabber. Oh my gosh,
There-
that's pretty elaborate actually. That's pretty good.
Well, he's I mean, when I say home build, I know that sounds scary, but he's a pretty smart guy.
Mhm.
He's it had the manipulator. We saw him stuffing the bag with things, and that's what we did. And
Now you're here to talk about it, which is good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's oddly enough, I shouldn't say this, but I don't know of any serious disasters in research subs, small subs.
which is surprising because it just looks like they're going to explode.
You cannot
Or
give
implode.
you cannot give the ocean any chance. Even a fingernail scratch in a window, we have to replace the window because
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
want to give the ocean any chance of taking advantage.
over.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Right,
no,
Ash?
that's scary. Okay, yeah, we're running out of time, but I mean, Shackleford, and they found the ship, and you're going to go anyway, right?
No, it makes me laugh. You call him Shackleford. It's Shackleton.
Why do they call him Shackleford?
Oh, because I call him Shackleford.
Ah.
Yeah, and people say, "Are you looking for Shackleton?" I said, "No, I'm looking for Shackleford, not Shackleton. Everyone can find Shackleton. Shackleford, who knows where he is?" Yeah, that was.
Well, you need to be looking for Shackleford's ship because Shackleton's was found.
Yeah, I know.
Time to move on.
Creeps. That was an incredible achievement. Twice I had a team together. You have to raise a lot of money, 15 million maybe, to get a good start because it's in the Arctic. It's under the Arctic ice. You've got
Wow.
to get through the ice. That means a lot of money on icebreakers and airplanes and all that stuff. But twice we were ready to go. The last time would have been with Jim Cameron, the director, who's a genius in the ocean. And this group, we heard rumors that there was another group that was on its way out. So that kind of ends fundraising. You can't go to someone and say, "Hey, we need $5 or $10 million." Oh, but yeah, there's this other group that's
To be
going.
second. Yeah.
So, and I didn't think they'd find it. I don't know if I was hoping they find it, but they did, and
They found it.
they did. And gosh, it was not easy, and the images are superb and good for them. It's yeah. So
Yay.
yay, team. Yep. So Shackleford is what I'm looking for now. Last
See?
seen in Valparaiso with a bottle of God knows whatever he was drinking. We headed up to the mountains. That's the last he was seen. Shackleford.
Well,
I think it was. I think I did you a solid by
Reminding me of Shackleford.
reminding you
Yeah.
that you should be.
So when people say you'd never found Shackleton, no, I wasn't looking for Shackleton.
Exactly.
I was looking for Shackleford.
and out. Well, I love when I listen to some of your talks that you describe the ocean environment as a symphony.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could share, in your opinion, maybe which instrument or maybe it's not just the ocean, but the
We're part of the system.
whole part of the system. What instrument is most out of key? And I guess the obvious answer would be us.
Well, yeah.
But or is there just too much exploration at this point to say that's not been done? Maybe would that be something that would?
Sure.
I guess if before we decide what to do 1st, we have to find out what else is there.
Yep. And here's the deal. So in the oceans, the record of Earth history is at the bottom of the sea. It's in the rocks of the sea. They're striped. Oceans have these magnetic stripes. They're gorgeous. In the sediments of the sea, in the coral of the sea, in the ice caps, it's all there. You can find record of Earth history that goes back hundreds of thousands, sometimes more than 1,000,000 years. And when we look at that, we see rhythms and cycles and rhythms and cycles. And they're big ones and there's tiny ones, and the big ones are 100,000 years and 40,000 years and 20,000 years, 10,000 years. But so we can tell, because of the Earth's orbit, we can say in 10,000 years, here's what it's going to be. But that is not what we need. We need the next 10 years or the next 100 years.
Yeah.
And that means being able to get in the ocean and sample all those things with more accuracy and to be able to analyze them with more accuracy. It's a lot more work, but it's worth doing. And, I think of it, to me, everything I see is rhythms and patterns and day and night, seasons, and beyond that. It's just a beautiful thing. And everything spirals, galaxies spiraling around. And then to cope with my ADD, I like a story, beginning, middle, end, and then I hang the facts on that story. But I need that storyline.
Yeah.
And so this thing about rhythms and cycles and music, symphony of cycles, I like that. And if you imagine a symphony like, who knows what, Beethoven, and we show up at the very end of that symphony, last bit of it, and we clanging pots and pans together.
Well, we're the only part of the symphony that gets to choose.
Yeah.
Are we everything else is doing what they were created to do.
Yep.
Yet we get to choose, like, am I going to be nice to this person or am I going to kill them?
Right. Yeah, and no, we do, and it's sad. Then money comes in, money and power comes into the equation, and that really mucks things up because of all the things that are not natural. Money, the system of money is not so natural. So, and it's a great motivation.
Well,
but power is very natural.
Well, and so is a monetary system because there's a lot of good that we do with a monetary system. I would say it's probably the love of money that gets in the way of being altruistic and human focused.
Yeah, no, it's right. And I think it always amazes me that we should be absolutely gobsmacked. Is that a word? That's a word. I don't know what it means, but
I like that word.
When we go out at night and there's the moon and the stars and the constellations, and that's amazing. But we're not, because we're used to it. And then what does that mean? So what? And if you long exposure, you can head toward the North Star and watch the stars spin around in a circle. Wow, that stuff is great. It's just awesome. But we're not impressed with that kind of.
We don't slow down enough.
We don't slow down, and yet, I think if you go back in time, different civilizations could. The Minoans could. The Egyptians could. The Babylonians could.
Native Americans could.
Yeah, they could. They were in tune with the rhythms of
the symphony.
Yeah. And then again, like you said, we show up and make a mess out of the whole thing. So it makes it difficult to predict what's coming next because we've mucked it up right now. So
it's double-edged sword because although we can muck things up, we're also in the unique position to be able to fully 100% completely enjoy it also and appreciate it and study it.
I'm optimistic. I actually am because we know enough now. We can't use that excuse we didn't know. So now enough people know roughly what's going on, what our impact is, so we can start
doing something about it.
And young people have got it, I think. They really are and you got to thank teachers for a lot of that because they really know, more than once I've heard plastic straws, kids saying don't use plastic straws. On the other hand, in our town, Falmouth, Massachusetts, no more plastic bottles because we're right on the water.
Yes.
No more single use. But you walk down the row in the grocery store, the same aisle, and it's full of plastic bottles.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
said, because we're talking about water bottles, and these are flavored water. Oh
Right.
my God.
Well, we gotta. I think it's we gotta not hate the small beginnings. You know, like okay,
Yeah, it's a step. It's a
yeah,
step.
and it's a eye opening. Okay, there's that. Then our
Yeah.
eyes can maybe even see further. But I hate to move us along. I think we need to drift on in.
To the God waters. And actually, that was a really good segue again.
Perfect.
Applause. Yeah, you're good at this. We're both believers. And so at the end of our podcast, we always wrap things up through
Might
God's
be-
lens.
You might be wondering what kind of believers, because he was just at that seance.
Yeah, you're not
Oh,
going to chant, are you?
right.
Today?
Yeah.
God,
You
I can
cast
do
a broad net. That's
Yeah.
you.
Mm.
I was going to ask you, evolution or intelligent design?
That's a hot topic, isn't it?
It is. And then I went, just
Well,
joking. But
No. It's, here's the deal. Do I believe in God? Yeah. Not the guy in the white robe and all that junk. There's something out there. But both science and religions are human constructs to
Yeah.
explain all this junk for various reasons.
Mhm.
Some of them good, some of them not so good. But if you go back in time to the age of wizards, before humans got a hold of religion and humans got a hold of science, because they both make promises they can't keep. With religion, is there a God? Never going to get there. With science, is there gravity, for instance? What the heck is gravity? What's the universe all about? Never going to get there.
Mhm.
So, but if you go back beyond that, before those things happen, and look at everything as a oneness, that there's only one real story, and that everything's interconnected, and it really is interconnected. You have a gravitational field, and we all have and we're all pulling and pushing one another, and every time you move, it's changing the gravitational field of the whole universe, really, in a microwave. So we are all one, and I love that kind of stuff. So intelligent is both. I take the easy way out. But it's,
Yeah, that was a cop out. But the way you talk about your exploration and your experiences definitely made me think that you have some interest in intelligent design anyway. Just because you really draw attention to the interconnectedness and you draw attention to the design.
Oh, don't get me
of
wrong.
things.
When people say, "Do you believe in God?" Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you can't see the stuff we've seen and not impossible.
Well, that's how my faith journey started. It came from nothing, because I was not believing in anything or thought I didn't anyway. But one of the scriptures that resonated with me was Romans, chapter 1, verse 20, where it says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made." So people are without excuses. So we can clearly see through nature and the creation how
Sure.
Or
wonderful and infinite.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Well, I was
Go
just
ahead,
gonna
Laura.
say, like, when you look at whether it's the depth of the ocean to the Earth's surface, even to the story, like you said, like having that story be told that's in the stars.
Yeah.
I mean, like how we've designated the stars and the
Yeah.
constellations, that they themselves actually tell a story
Do.
of time and existence, and even the depth, the bottom of the ocean, even those little squiggly lines that tell the story of creation. I mean, it is evident of more than obviously than any of us.
Yeah.
Something crazy's happening. I mean,
I pray every day, several times a day. On the way over here, I prayed. I said, "Please make these people somewhat normal." That's
Well,
it.
well, you know
we did
what?
the same about
We
you.
had the same prayer. We just said, "Lord, make us sound more intelligent than we are."
Don't let us.
No, I do. Several times a day I do, and I'm always mindful before I go to bed, when I wake up in the morning. It can't hurt, and it goes somewhere. I don't think it goes to Galileo. I think,
Yeah.
We didn't ask you that to put you on the spot, though, just so you know.
No, it doesn't put me on spot. I'm very comfortable with it. I really am comfortable. Science has a lot of failings. So when I hear a scientist speaking out against religion, give me a break. You can't even explain gravity. They can't explain gravity.
To me, they're kind of the same. The more science we get involved in and see, the more creatures that people like you are discovering, the
Yeah.
more my mind just goes,
Yeah, and
Wow, that's-
science, technology, lights are horrible to me because they take away daytime and other things take away seasons, and I just think we're moving further away from the truth, from the rhythms and cycles of life, and going further out on a limb of, if we don't have the technology, we don't know what to do next.
yeah.
Mm.
No, that is scary.
Mhm.
I have another thing to say, but I know we're
See that? That's the last time we ever come here.
We'll say it after the podcast.
Yeah, well,
Right.
we just want to first of all, thank you for making time out of your schedule to swoop from one event to the next event and then to here. And we are very grateful to have you on the podcast. And you are probably as far as high caliber guests, this is, we're going to brag about this for a long time.
We can only go down from here, so
Yeah.
that's encouraging.
Bradley Cooper, who was really, he's a lesser being than.
Well, he passed. Trust me, we tried him. He passed. But I also want to thank Jen, who's sitting over here, for introducing us, and also for your work with Smart Start in Hanover County. I know through this discussion about the ocean and everything, we may have glossed over the important work that they're doing, but I'll be sure to link that, which I already have it in my notes here, and encourage our listeners to get involved in a monetary way with Smart Start. Give them some money so they can keep doing their good stuff.
Absolutely.
What else, Laurel?
That's it. If you want to give us a review on Apple Podcasts, that's meaningful to us.
Yeah, if it's a good one.
Especially this one.
All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.